Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. It's Monday, and that means Michele Barrett is with me. Michele, what's up?
I mean, I woke up in the worst possible way. I mean, I just checked the results, and I was so mad. Like, why? Why do I have to start the week waking up at 5:15 a.m. with a thunder wind? Like, that is something that I didn't want. But hey, I mean, at least Poku had quite the night. Can you imagine, like, winning the same basketball game with, I don't know, Isaiah Roby and Gabriel Deck being the best scorers? That would have been awful. Or Charlie Brown, like a guy like Charlie Brown going up for 50 because he was happy for the contract. Something crazy like that.
See, Charlie Brown would have been acceptable to me because it would have just been like, it would have been the equivalent of giving like Oturu 21 shots like they did last night, right? Like Charlie Brown.
So bad. Oturu.
Charlie Brown is our Oturu, right? It's a hard name to say too. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, it's bittersweet. It's mostly bitter that they lost this game. Poku was very good. His touch looks so much better than it did at the beginning of the season. Like he's more comfortable. And some of the comfort was that the Clippers played zero defense, like none. I saw them play 2 possessions on Poku where it looked like they were actually guarding him, and the rest it was just like Luke Kennard being Luke Kennard. I mean, it was the worst NBA basketball game I've ever seen. I got to witness it in person, which I guess it's kind of cool that the worst basketball game I've ever seen in my life, I got to see it in person. It was awful, truly awful. The Clippers were making me so mad. They just couldn't care less about that game, about winning that game. I mean, they started Zubac to get him the stupid record for playing in every single game. He didn't play. Sure, he started. It's just like a ridiculous technicality. Like, he didn't play. He has 0 minutes. He's got zeros across the board, 1 personal foul. He goes out. They bring Ibaka in. Ibaka's kind of moving at half speed out there. The only guy that actually played well for the Clippers was Terrence Mann, who was awesome. 7 of 8 from the field, 19 points, 2 boards. He only played him 23 minutes. And then, like, they stopped letting Jay Scrubb and Yogi Ferrell shoot the ball. And then Oturu took 21 shots in the game. They were having him, like, post up on the mid-post. Just absolute insanity. Uh-oh. Is everybody else with me? Am I frozen, or is it just Michele?
It's probably me, but I got the idea of your sentence. So
there he is. Dude, it's such a disaster. And like, people are complaining, like, yeah, Moses Brown played a lot. And when Moses Brown is surrounded by people that don't play hard, he's gonna put up numbers. He 24, 18, 3 assists, 7 blocks for Moses is a monster night. Yeah, they could have benched him. They probably should have benched him in favor of just like throwing Deck out there at center, or just making sure that Horde is your center. But Tony Bradley was kind of scoring at will too, and they were like, okay, we got to pull him out too. They should have just played small and let Oturu just steamroll people.
Are you sure that is something that could happen in real life? Like Oturu steaming people?
At least you don't have Moses Brown's gigantic arms grabbing every rebound, right?
Yeah, but these games are just, I mean, they won 3 games when they really tried the tanking thing.
Yeah,
and
they did.
You cannot do better than that. I mean, yes, of course you can, but they really did a good job. The goal was to get one of the 5th worst record. They actually did it. And it's, if you think about like where they were, it's kind of insane. So yeah, it's not good that they share the record with Cleveland and that they lost a little bit of percentage in terms of odds and stuff like that. But it's you can lose them all, as I already said. And some nights, say that Poku has a normal night, you lose this game, even if the Clippers were playing like this. So it's
and the Clippers, it became pretty clear pretty early on that the Clippers were going to lose this game, like no matter what happened. I mean, they did not foul at the end of the game when they were down. It became clear that like they were going to be as non-competitive as possible, and they were going to find who is the worst player on the roster. They're looking up and down the roster. They found him. They said, "You're the one. You're going to take all the shots." And the Thunder have kind of done what they've always done throughout the season. They have a non-competitive group because the players aren't ready to win, and they don't know how to win, and they're not talented enough to win. But they're not going out there and throwing games by running sets through their worst offensive player on the team. Like if they wanted to do that, they could have said, "Hey, Charlie Brown, you are 35
shots.
You are our point guard, and we don't want you to pass. We want you to create everything." That's the equivalent of what the Clippers did. And Scott Van Pelt went on this huge rant with mostly being correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've listened to it, he is 90% correct about everything. He talks about how the draft is the only way that the Thunder can actually build a team. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's correct.
That's real.
He talks about how they had to sit players in favor of playing younger players. Yes, that's what they're doing exactly. And then he gets like to the emotional piece and talks about how like this is the way that the Thunder want to operate, and I don't know, it just got weird, and like he didn't like it. This is what it came down to. Like, I don't like the way that they're doing this. The truth is, like, nobody likes it. I don't know how you could watch last night's game where you had the Thunder doing what they've done, which is they're just playing players that aren't ready to win. But then you watch a team that actually tanks the game, that tells the players exactly here's how we're going to lose this game, and here's what you're going to do to lose it. Like, that was really tanking. Like, I don't know how anybody could have sat and watched that game and enjoyed it. It was an abysmal basketball game. It was the equivalent of like 2K on rookie mode. There was no defense.
Come on. There was Pokuševski. That's enough for me to be entertained.
Even Poku, yes, there were some entertaining moments, but like you knew it wasn't real. You know what I mean? Like you knew parts of it because there was no defense. That wasn't a real NBA game.
Yeah, that is fair.
So like, yes, that like you can, yes, we all hate that. I don't think anybody sat and enjoyed the game. I think it's almost impossible because you knew what was going on from the Clippers side in particular. And yeah, the Thunder did some stuff too. They sat some guys, but the game plan stuff was still like, hey, we're still going to run our stuff. And we're still going to try to put ourselves in position to help these guys go through scenarios where they can get better. So, and they have lost in a historic fashion doing that. They just ran into a team that tanked harder than they did. And, it's frustrating, but Alex has been texting me about this. We talked about it last night after the game. But if you go back, Alex and I did an episode, and I may sprinkle some of that episode into Wednesday's show, where we talked about, like, what do we think the odds are that the Thunder could pass in the reverse rankings, like the Wizards and the Raptors and teams like that. And I thought it was pretty low for the most part. I didn't think that they were going to. I thought they would end up at like 7, 8, 9 is the range that I thought they would end up in. And so we had kind of hoped that they would end up where they are today, which is tied for fourth with Cleveland, just a game behind Orlando, 2 games behind Detroit, and then a ton back of Houston.
Yeah.
This was like the ideal scenario. So like there's just like a lot of perspectives to take here.
Yes.
today. And the fact is they are where they are. Like we can't do anything about that. And in about a month, the lottery's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. And obviously you would love to just have the team keep a top 4 spot, like land at the 4th spot, land at the 3rd spot, ideally get the number 1 spot, but we don't have control over that. And we don't know that like the Kings aren't going to jump up to 1. We don't know what's going to happen. It's completely out of the control of the organization. And this whole season's been just a tale of two halves, right? Like in the first half of the season, Shea is playing. And that is the big overarching thing, right? And you've been talking about this on After Dark. We've talked about it a lot. Like Shea has proven at his skill level that you can't be a bottom 5 team in the league if he's playing, right?
Yeah. No, that is my thinking.
Yeah. And so once he went out with an injury, and he talked today, and I'm going to put some of these exit interviews at the end. I think I'll put Shea, I'll put Dort, and I'll put some of Muscala on there. Poku's going to talk in about an hour, and so I will put that on there as well. I didn't get Mark. I didn't get Horford. I'm going to try to get those from Thunder PR and see if I can put those on there too. But I'll put those here at the end. But Shea even said today that he's still not healthy, that he still can't go, and that he hopes that he's healthy enough to play for Team Canada. So that like gives you a little bit of insight as to where Shea is with regards to the injury. He said it feels better. He said it's getting better every day. He said he's not 100% yet. So he doesn't even know if he can play for Team Canada, is what he said. My assumption is that he will play for Team Canada, that he'll be better by then. But I don't know. I haven't talked to his doctor. I don't know what's going on with his foot. But the line of delineation was whenever he went down with the injury, with the tear, and that was it. Then they started, once that became clear, the team wasn't going to be good, but they would have probably won 2 or 3 more games than they did down the stretch, right?
Oh, no. I completely disagree with that. 2 or 3 is such a low number. No. I don't think that is accurate.
4?
No. I really think they could have been right without the Spurs.
Without Shea?
No, with Shea. Oh, sorry.
I'm talking about without Shea.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is Shea goes out, then they start pulling all the levers to make sure they don't win those 3 games. Because I think maybe Horford I can say Horford is worth 1, maybe 2 wins during that time span.
I think that if they don't have Shea, but they play to win, so they don't play stupid lineups. They just play the best players. They don't play Moses Brown. They play Roby Moore. They play Kenrich, Ty Jerome, Dort every single game without resting them. I think that's 6-7 games more, like around 30. And with Shea, I think they are in the play-in.
I think that is totally possible. Yeah, they're probably in the Toronto range, the 27 win range. Exactly. Is where they would be if they didn't pull out those levers, which is the most worthless range to be in. And so once they realize, hey, he can't be here, they pulled all the levers, and now they got to where they are, which is they're going to split the 4th and 5th odds with the Cavs, is what happens. And so it's just that a little bit less than the 4th place odds to get there. So probably around 10.5% to get the number 1 pick, and then whatever it is in the 40s, 45-ish% to get a top 4 pick. So that's where they'll be on draft night. Would you want better odds? Absolutely. Could you get like drastically better odds? I mean, not really. You can't get drastically better odds, which is kind of the purpose of the way that they've done it, right? It's like 7 percentage points lower than the third spot. And would you want to have those percentage points? Sure. It still could be meaningless. They could have been in the second spot and still fallen. And what you want to mitigate though is how far you can fall.
Exactly.
And the further down you are, the further you can fall. So that is where it is more detrimental, is that you have the potential to land at 7, where you're at, rather than at, falling to 5. You'd rather fall to 5 than fall to 7. Exactly. But again, we can't control it. This is a league issue. If the Thunder had a better way to acquire talent, we wouldn't be worried about this. If they had the same opportunities that the Nets have, we wouldn't be worried about this. But the Thunder are going to build through the draft. This is how they're going to do it. And so, yes, we are, as a fan base, going to latch on to every single percentage point that we can, because at the end of the day, it does matter. So if you're frustrated today, like, you have every right to be frustrated. But also, we also have to keep in perspective several things. Like, one, like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a star. I firmly believe that. And so basically, the Thunder tanked for 30 games, right? Like, truly did it.
Yes.
And we still have a chance to come out of this 30-game sample of a tank that was not fun basketball, but still, that's all that we had, right? With a star in Shea, with a nice starter in Lou, with a project wing, weird hybrid, whatever he is, in Poku, that has the ceiling of a great player and that has the floor of just a wacky guy that came into the league that we'll remember forever. And Darius Bazley, who's still he's a question mark to me, quite like a lot, but he has the skill set and the size of a guy that you would want, right? 6'8", long arms, can dribble, can shoot, can do all these things, can move well.
He's shoot well, allegedly, but yeah, let's.
You know what I mean? Yeah, he's shown the ability. He's shown the ability to at least shoot off the catch.
Yes,
and cool. If he works out, great. If not, it's not going to determine the ultimate destiny of the Thunder. But you come away with that, and then if you can add on top of it high-level draft picks, at least one. Give me one. You have the chance at 2. Like, that's a great place to be after having only a 30-game tank sample.
Yeah, and I'm also against a lot of media that says, well, tanking is bad and stuff like that. It's very, very hard and not common that a team wins a title without having at least some sort of draft luck / tanking year. Even the Lakers that have Anthony Davis and LeBron James, you can argue that they had that because there were assets available.
Without a doubt.
LeBron, no, okay, but they weren't relevant with LeBron and the youngster. They needed to get the star, and the star they got with draft capital after a lot of season of awful basketball. The Lakers were terrible with Randall and Lonzo and whoever. Like, that was not good basketball. No. It was the Kobe show, which thank God we had it, because now we have a few more seasons for us to rewatch of Kobe. But it's not that wasn't tanking. Letting Kobe going in his farewell tour, that is actually tanking. It's we don't care about the result. We just care about Kobe, which is fine. But you're not trying to win games. You're trying to do different stuff, which is fine. And I love the point that you made about the difference in losing, because you strategically, basically, you held out guys. You held out guys from night to night. But the guys that they are playing, you are really trying to have a philosophy of basketball. Now, you don't need shots because you don't have good shooters, but at least you try to play functional units and try to play defense. It doesn't always work, but at least there is a basketball, a very crappy basketball, but they are trying.
It's still basketball. Last night, not it.
No. Well, The Reggie with glasses experience for me was everything. I mean, but anyway, so
Oh
yeah, I mean,
man.
but it's not that. I mean, you can say yes, Brooklyn didn't tank. Yes, now for in this particular iteration, but they did.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that an example? Is that like
It's
3
not.
stars?
Let me give you a reason why. One, they didn't have their draft picks. Two, they're located in Brooklyn, New York, where they could sit back and say and just have a functional, nice organization with cool logos, cool things, cool places to be, and then Kevin and Kyrie walked through the door. The
Yeah.
Thunder, there's nothing the Thunder could do to make Oklahoma City cool enough, to make it good enough
You know what
for
they
those
can do?
players to walk through. There's just no way.
No, there is a way. They can get back Steven Adams, and that means OKC is now the coolest team in the NBA. That will not happen. Clearly,
Even that is just, if that were true, the Thunder would be on the phone now and be like, we got to get Steven back, give 4 first-round picks just to get him back here so that we can get these guys to walk through the door.
Oh, there is surely a guy that is trying to move Steven to OKC, because maybe with Bledsoe. I mean, they have the cap. It's crazy. They have the cap space to absorb both.
I know.
Without giving anything. Basically, they can give in, I don't know, like a couple of like pieces, like deck. They can give deck away and absorb everything.
Yeah, they could. It's pretty wild. And we talked a little bit over text about how we think that they'll proceed with their cap space.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps like a free agent might be a part of the pursuit. I tend to think that it will not be. That I just don't see it. I think that they'll use their cap space the way that they have in the past, is like a Bledsoe or like just some dead weight money. If a team is either trying to pursue somebody in free agency and they don't have the cap space, the Thunder could be like, hey, we've got it. Just send us a pick. Or like Bledsoe, where they're just cap strapped and not necessarily seeking a free agent, but they just want to get out of the situation that they put themselves in. Well, the Thunder could say, yeah, you just have to give us 2 future first round picks, or you have to pick swap. You have to give us pick swaps, in these whatever years they are. Kick the can as far down the road as you can, kind of thing. And hope that maybe Zion is gone, or something happens and they're just not any good. I think McKelly's frozen on me. So today is Thunder Media Day. We're only going to go for a few more minutes. So we talked to Coach Degnault. We've talked to Shea. We've talked to Dort. We talked to Mike Muscala. Kenrich talked. I'm sure that there's somebody else talking right now, but I'm not on it because we're recording. But the guys have been pretty good so far. I mean, I just am more and more convinced that Shea is going to be an absolute star in this league. And I think that I asked Mark about it. Mark kind of hinted at that. That's kind of where his belief is with Shea. And then just the way that Shea operates and the way that everybody talks about him. He's like all the other stars OKC's had, where people talk about their work ethic and the way that they lead. And you can even see him last night, the way that he was leading the team with his enthusiasm on the bench. It was quite impressive. Like he's an impressive player, even just as a leader. He knows how to lead in the right ways. And I'm really excited to see him come back, because that was one thing that Mark Degnault said, was that the most impressive thing about him is that when he comes back after a break, he has changed in some way. He said he changed his body recently. That's one thing Shea said he wants to do, is to keep getting a lot stronger. And that's probably so he can absorb fouls and so that he can get in the lane better. I mean, you saw James Harden. Like, James Harden wasn't a tank when he came into the league. He became one through getting stronger and stronger through the years. And I think that Shea understands the value in that. And so Mark talked about how he just comes back better every time, adding something, changing his shooting stroke, being better at everything. And so that it really excites me to see what he'll be after this season. And I hope he can go play with his national team, because I do think that those experiences help to build a certain level of confidence as well within these players. Because I think he'll quickly discover that he is, without a doubt, the best player on that team. And then to take that mantle and then to come back to OKC, I just don't know. I just don't know what next season looks like, Michele, and I'm fascinated. This is going to be one of the more fascinating off seasons in Thunder history. And there have been lots of fascinating off seasons in Thunder history. But to me, this will be one of them. One, because of the draft and the draft lottery. And then two, like, what kind of team do they make? Like, what does it look like? I'm very curious.
Yeah, and part is connected to what we were saying before about the cap space and the things that you can actually do with money. I mean, we jokingly said, well, you can absorb Adams and Bledsoe, and that gives you asset. I was listening to Sam Vecini and Danny LaRue talking about the future of the eliminated teams, and they floated around, especially Danny, which I often disagree with, but he's smart, so it's smarter than me, so it's always a good listen. And he was saying, well, maybe OKC can gather talent by just signing a restricted free agency. Free agent.
I just don't
but it depends. It depends. It really depends. There are guys that you can really maximize in OKC, I think. Like it's
and they talked about Markkanen. I listened to that portion of the pod this morning. That's one I'm just like, guys, I just don't see it.
But they weren't into that. They said, well, if you have a player that works though, and it's restricted. And again, we in the chat we floated around the idea of Duncan Robinson or even Lonzo. Like, you can offer for Lonzo. He's a talent.
Lonzo's like one of the only ones where, let's say you don't get a guard. Let's say that Evan Mobley is the only guy they get, right?
Yeah. Oh, too bad.
Too bad. Like, I'd be
or Kuminga.
Or Kuminga. I'd be by the way, I'd be freaking out if they just got Evan Mobley. Then I could see it where you play Shea, Dort, Lonzo, where multi-skilled, multi-talented players, Poku at the 4, Mobley at the 5. You're this wacky, high IQ, everybody can pass it. Lonzo's been good shooting off the catch. If Dort can continue to be good shooting off the catch, that is a wild and wacky fun team. The thing about it is that the Thunder have never done this before. They've never gone after restricted free agents. It's always through trade, if they're going to acquire a player that's on another team, or it's lower level free agents. Some of it is like, first of all, does Lonzo take a meeting with the Thunder? Is a question I would ask.
I don't know. The question that I ask you is, when is the last time that OKC truly had cap space to sign a restricted free agent?
Like big time cap space, 2010.
Yeah, but they had already something to build with.
Yeah,
and 2009 was not the year
I remember the conversations I was having, and this was pre-podcast. Andrew was, hey, could they throw the max at David Lee? Could they throw the max at? Chris Bosh was always like the pipe dream that I would always talk about with people. It's like, wouldn't Chris Bosh
have been so smart to do it?
Wouldn't Chris Bosh want to come play with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook? Oh yeah, he should want to do that. And at the time, like, we were still, the team was still so new to us that we were just thinking in terms of roster construction only, and having very little understanding of like how much your market dictates exactly what you can do.
Yeah.
And so then when the Thunder gave Nick Collison this balloon payment and ate up a ton of their space, you're like, what in the world are they doing? They're squashing this opportunity that they could have had.
Yeah.
But the truth is, like, they weren't getting meetings with David Lee. They weren't going to get a meeting with Chris Bosh. They weren't going to get a meeting. They weren't even going to get a meeting with those guys.
Yeah, but that I completely understand. There is a small thing that I think it's different now, and is that both Miami and the Pelicans are not as flexible, especially Miami.
Yeah.
They don't want to go into early free agency and sign Robinson immediately.
How old is Duncan Robinson? Is he 26? Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, see,
Something
that's
like
where I'm just like,
who cares? You signed it for 4 years.
I know. I kind of care, though. I kind of care. That's who
care.
kind of cares. Me.
Don't care.
I like
Lonzo.
Duncan Robinson. I like him as a guy. I like him as a player. I think he's super good. He's probably underrated at this point in his career.
Yeah, the point is, at some point, you want the money, and if somehow the Pelicans don't offer 20 plus to Lonzo, which I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that they will.
Yeah. Well, don't you think like the Knicks will or something? Like he'll take a meeting with the Knicks, and if the Knicks want to give him the same money, like he's going to New York.
Of course. But if you are OKC and you are the team that can offer a really good contract, fat contract, 5 years, they can offer whatever Lonzo wants if they think that he fits with Shea. And I think that Lonzo fits very well with Shea. He's not the lead ball handler, but he's a guy that can defend, that can space the court very well. He can take 8 threes per game. He's Kenrich Williams on high steroids. He does everything that Kenrich does better. He's a much more willing passer. He knows, like, that would be a fun team. I know that it's unlikely that OKC gets a meeting, but if they have space and they think that he can work with the roster, why not? They have no cap constraints for the next 5 years.
I would be floored. I would have a heart attack. I'd die. I'd have to be resuscitated and brought back to life if something like that happened. I just don't think it's going to happen.
You force someone else's hand to offer more.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, if you have a young star, you should be forced to pay market value. Yeah. And I mean, it's just that. I mean, OKC had Portland making a silly offer to Ennis. Yeah. And they had to pay. They didn't want to pay that amount.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be very, 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 very surprised. I would guess that we'll end up with like the Morris Peterson contract again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that's how they used cap space before. They did the Mo Pete thing. He stunk. They continued to build and collect assets, and that's the way it went. My guess is Mo Pete Part 2, 2021 here this summer. That would be my guess as to how that they will handle themselves. So, and I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. You know, they've made some moves. Like they signed Charlie Brown to a deal this past week. I don't, just from thinking about it, I don't think that it's the same deal as Moses Brown. Because I think they only have the minimum left. I don't think they can use any of their mid-level money on him like they did with Moses. So I think what the deal is a deal for the rest of this season at the minimum prorated, and then next season minimum, probably non-guaranteed would be my guess.
Yeah. The multi-year thing can be just 2 years. T is multi, apparently.
Yes, I think that would just from looking into it, just with the cap numbers and what they have put together, my guess is that it's minimum 2 years, including this year, and non-guaranteed. So they can use him as, you know, trade fodder. They can cut him. They're going to have a lot of options with him. So that would be my guess on that. But
I mean, and again, it's I agree with you. It's way more likely that they do something easier, like not going and signing Duncan Robinson or Lonzo or whoever is restricted right now. I understand, but I mean, one thing that OKC is really, really good at is taking a guy that is worth X and at the end of the season, you have a guy that is worth X plus.
Yeah.
So I really wonder if something like that could be in place. I mean,
well, and an example of that would be Jeremy Grant.
Is Darius Baisley? Oh no, sorry.
We Jeremy Grant with the Pistons. Like right now, let's say they look at their team, they get Cade, and they look at their team, they're like, yeah, we want to push our timeline back a little bit. And Jeremy Grant doesn't quite fit what we want. Let's call the Celtics. Celtics say, oh, we'll give you 2 first rounders for him. We'll do that today. Great. Done deal. Boom. That's another reason why, if you see the potential of a guy in free agency where you may have to seemingly overpay them in the offseason to get them to come to your market. Obviously, Jeremy had desires to be in Detroit for multiple reasons, and there's a lot of details within that. Details that the Thunder couldn't, like the Thunder can't manufacture the reasons why he wanted to go to Detroit. They couldn't do it. But let's say that you did have a player that you think you could build their value. And then like right now, if Detroit said, hey, Jeremy Grant's on the market, they would get Robert Covington plus value for him. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, that's like another reason why that you want to do it. But anyways, just to kind of put a bow on this conversation and kind of the future conversations that we're going to have over the next several weeks as we approach the draft lottery, as we approach the NBA draft, like the Thunder are backed into this small market corner where they essentially have one way to get better. And if the Thunder had multiple ways to get better, they would do it. The one way is the draft. That's how you make the big leap.
Yes.
You can't make big leaps through free agency. You can't make big leaps through trade right now with the Thunder. And so the big leaps will be made through the draft. And so that's why we're all mad today. It's because this was it. This is how we do it. And the Clippers messed up. And so now people, we are Mavs fans. Alex was texting this in our chat and I was like, yes, this is right. We are all Mavericks fans. Clippers, we want you to go down in round 1. We want you to pay for this Daniel Orturu game that you made us all suffer through. So
that would be amazing. Can you imagine if they go down in round 1?
I'll be elated.
If I were Kawhi, I would bounce.
If they win, I will get a Daniel Orturu flag printed and I will raise it up in my front yard and just have his face just flapping in the wind.
So you're getting worse, Andrew. I mean, the first was the tattoo. Now it's just a flag. I mean, you should aim for more. Like,
I'm so mad. I'm so mad about it. It was just the dumbest game. But anyways, I'm going to put some of these interviews at the end here. Hope you guys enjoy it. Just stick with us. We're going to continue to bring you guys content every week. Make sure that you go to the OKC Dream Team Patreon page, patreon.com/OKC Dream Team, where in the next week and a half, Michele and I are going to start posting our Thunder After Dark player draft evaluations on players. So we're going to post 30 plus players on there that we evaluate, that we're going to watch a ton of, that we're going to figure out who we like, who we don't like. We're eventually going to put our rankings up there. So make sure that you go subscribe to that. We'll talk a little bit about that on here, but we'll go into full detail over there. So make sure that you check that out. Go to theathletic.com/down-to-dunk and get The Athletic for $3.99 a month. You're going to want that. And with that, we will send you guys over to these interviews on Media Day.